How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. Well, welcome to another session of Headcases. And did you ever admire someone from afar and wonder if they're as gracious and as kind as you perceive them to be, and probably the press has made them out to be? And you wonder, if and when you do, will they be? Well, I just did, and he is. Today's guest is an author, school owner, motivational speaker, philanthropist, and award show host. As a matter of fact, he's been a 4-time host of NAHA. To drop a few of his public speaking clients' names, they include Southwest Airlines, McDonald's, John Paul Mitchell Systems, Vidal Sassoon, Hyatt Hotels and Resorts, and Professional Beauty Association. NAHA awarded him into the NAHA Hall of Leaders. American Salon said he was one of the 5 industry leaders who helped revolutionize education. Thirst Project honored him with the Vision Awards, and Friendly House gave him the Humanitarian of the Year. He's received the Ellis Award, Medal of Honor. He's the author of Be Nice or Else and Be Nice Revolution. 25 years ago, he started the Masters audio series featuring 325 top leaders and icons. Now, this is probably the giveaway for you. He is the dean and co-founder of Paul Mitchell Schools. So let's get into this week's head case, and forever positive and nice, Mr. Winn Claybaugh. Winn, I can't say how much fun this is going to be because, you know, there's so many people. What I love about it, and I know you do podcasts all the time. I mean, before you just said that you just got off of one 10 minutes ago, so you know what it's like. And I find what I find so intriguing about doing them is that I get to meet so many people that, you know, I know passing in the shows, we've been stages across from one another, but, you know, to finally meet people and to find out that we're all just loving of the industry and it's just a real pleasure to have you on here, buddy. I've been an admirer of yours for years, for everything that you do, your books and so on. So I just want to say welcome to Headcases.
Well, thanks so much, Chris. And I've been a fan of you so much so that, believe it or not, we featured you in February of 1997 with my Masters podcast. So you and I have been doing this for a while.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have to say that because that was with Kitty Victor, and God bless her, you know, and, you know, a little prayer for Kitty there. But it was, I have to say, you know, that was, she was so gracious, and I screwed up that first video. We did the first Masters one that she did a tape, and it was so bad. I did it so bad. I think it was one of the first interviews that I'd ever done for something like that. And I screwed it up so bad. And then she was kind enough, said, okay, good. Look, and I'll come down and I'll go to wherever you are and I'll do it again. And I don't think I did a much better job on that. And hopefully I've improved. But I just want to say that, you know, it was a pleasure doing. I loved what you guys did. And I think I'm still a little embarrassed that if I get labeled by that one that I did, because I think I was trying to be funny and I wasn't.
Well, you know what? We've all done those types of presentations thinking, oh, I could have done so much better. The good news is we're still here, right?
Yeah.
We've done something right, that we're still here.
Yeah.
For some reason, people are still listening to us. So you got to feel grateful for that.
Well, you know, I always like to start on these just because I don't know who would be out there that wouldn't know who you are, but just what I think is important. Some people don't know how these people, the icons, the people that they see on stage, the people that see in press all the time, their hair story. So give us just a quick rundown on your hair story and how you got into it, et cetera.
Absolutely. Again, I'm super honored when I got this message that Chris Baran wants to interview you. I can't tell you what that day was like for me. I'm a bit of a fan and a little bit starstruck right now. So let me stumble through this a little bit. Okay. My hair story. First of all, I'm not a hairdresser. I've never been a hairdresser. I started my career, believe it or not, I opened up my first salon 40 years ago and
Wow.
quickly got into the school business. I had a couple of salons, and in that experience of trying to interview and hire and attract and retain stylists, I found that after spending a year in school, they weren't at all ready and prepared to compete in what I thought was the standard of being a wonderful hairdresser. And so we thought that the best way to train them would be to train them ourselves. And so I immediately got into the school business. Sometimes being super naive is the best
Yeah.
quality. You don't know what you don't know, and so you just kind of blow by all of those stop signs, all of those roadblocks that said, you know what, you're off course and this is never going to work. And I just blew past all of those. And I love what I was doing. I love to hustle. I love that word hustle. For some reason, people today think that there's some bad connotation or bad meaning with the word hustle. And I, at that time in my career, and I'm still doing it today, I still hustle quite a bit. But I fell in love with the beauty industry. I fell in love with hairdressers, and fortunately, hairdressers fell in love with me. By the way, I have no college education. I barely, and I mean barely, graduated from high school. Apparently, they want you to show up. I told them that I was busy. But you know that the cool thing about the beauty industry is that nobody has ever turned me down. Nobody has ever said no to me. Nobody has ever said, well, you're not a hairdresser, so you're not qualified. You don't have the license, so you're not qualified. I have just found from day one, I just have found that the professional beauty industry embraces people, embraces what I now call unconventional wisdom. You know, conventional wisdom is what we already know. So if you're sitting in an audience thinking, well, I don't really care what that speaker has to say because they're not a hairdresser, well, that's conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's what you already know. What's going to take us to the next level is what we don't know. And that's unconventional wisdom.
You know, we bear. You know, the one thing I say, we were chit chatting before we started the podcast for people listening and watching right now, and we were bantering back and forth, and we're doing the little one leg up on each other. And I'd say, and I'm not trying to be leg up, but you know, you at least finished grade 12 or whatever they call it down here in Canada. I was that kid that didn't do well in school, and you know I'm not going to put it down to when I left. I always say I thought I was because I wasn't smart. I thought I was stupid, but and I think that's where part of what we bear really close to one another. What we love is the fact of education. And when I got out and I started to jump into education, I realized that I wasn't stupid. It's not that I wasn't smart. It's just that the educational system, I'm not going to put any blame on teachers, but the system that we had of training people really is not really set up to really help to train people to be creative and move forward, etc. And I love the fact of how you got into the education part. So I want to do two parts here, and I sometimes will mix things up in here. I want to talk just a little bit about how that came about, where you and John Paul got together and started the schools that you have, number one. But then number two is also how you got, because you're public speaking and you talk you're always speaking to people about, excuse me, you're always speaking to people about how positive attitude, mindset. And I think that's probably what I got from what you were saying there. You know, that unconventional wisdom is just the fact of, just people having a proper mindset when it comes to learning and education. Could you just, talk to that?
Absolutely. Well, you said that you grew up feeling that maybe you weren't smart. And in our schools from day one, the foundation is we're not asking the question, how smart are you?
Yeah.
We're asking the question of, how are you smart? Because we have different intelligences,
Yes.
we have different skill set, and we learn differently too.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you're in an education class, there's a talking head up there. So if there's 20 people in that class, maybe only 3 of them are learning anything because of the style, because of the content and the context of how the information is being shared. And so, we learn from at the very, very beginning of opening up our schools, that there are multiple intelligences, and we had to be addressing all of them.
Yeah.
Again, I got into the school business because I felt like there was something lacking, and that's not to put anybody down. That's not to put down the types of educational institutions that existed at the time, but just things as simple as like the dress code in beauty schools was everybody was in scrubs, and I never understood that. Like, why aren't they dressing the part now?
Yeah.
They're not going to wear scrubs. They're not going to dental school. They're not going to wear this in the salon. Why shouldn't they look and dress and act like a salon professional from day one?
Yeah.
In the very, very beginning, rather than calling them students, we came up with the term future professionals.
Yeah.
And we've been using that. And now I'm really proud to say that almost every brand and network that's in the beauty school business is using that same term, future professionals.
Yeah.
And so in the very, very beginning, we started upgrading even the facilities. We created facilities that, believe it or not, were nicer than some of the salons in our community. And so lots of decisions and choices that we made very, very in the beginning stages that have served us well all this time. But now oh my gosh, here I'm saying it on a podcast. I was just going to say to you, if you quote me on this, I'll deny that I said it, but I'm going to say it publicly that, again, I started in the salon business. Had I only stayed in the salon business, meaning had I not gotten into the school business, I don't think that I would be in the professional beauty industry today.
All right.
Had I only been a salon owner, I think that I would have become disillusioned. I think I would have gotten frustrated. And what truly helped me fall in love with the professional beauty industry was in working with teachers, was in working with beauty school instructors, was in working with future professionals, with working with students. That's what ignited my passion. It's that next generation, which I just absolutely fell in love with.
Yeah. When, we're clicking on so many levels here because I feel so close to what you're saying because when I got into the industry and then, I won an award and a company came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to teach on stage?" And I thought, "Oh, big shot. Look at me. I must be really good." Got on stage and then discovered I didn't know diddly about how to teach. And so I went through the industry for quite a while, just being a comedian. Nobody learned anything. But the point I think that you're saying is, I think that's what really changes us. And that's what really helped me along the industry for so many years. And whether you call it changing or evolution or whatever that is, but what I want to know is what was it like for you, salon owner, got into education business, and then all of a sudden, now you're sought after for just speaking. And was it the book that started it? What made that education side flourish for you?
Such a great question. Tony Robbins talks about being motivated through inspiration or through desperation. And for me back then, it was pure desperation.
Mm-hmm.
I became a motivational speaker. Why? Because I was so desperate and so miserable in my own life that the only way that I could gain information and knowledge was to have a whole bunch of mentors. So I was the student in the audience listening to wonderful speakers and mentors and authors. And how I validated all the information that I was taking in was to talk about it. So if I attended a 3-day retreat with somebody like a Louise Hay or a John Bradshaw, that you better believe that the next salon staff meeting was me trying to repeat everything that I just learned in that retreat. And that process of sharing information, hey, you guys, this is what I learned last weekend from Marianne Williamson. It was that process of me trying to share with my team what I was personally going through, what I was trying to learn, what I was trying to improve in my own life. Guess what? They needed to hear it too.
Mm-hmm.
And that process of sharing information eventually turned into a career where people are like, you're really good at sharing information. I know that it's a gift that I have, and I'm grateful for that gift. It's through grace that for some reason when I share information and I use humor, I love that you use humor that helps people learn and grow and take in information. And so I know that that's a gift that I was given, and I'm grateful for that. So what I do is I take in information and I want to turn around and immediately share it with other people. What do they say? It's the person who's doing the teaching, who's doing the speaking, that's sharing the information, that's learning the most. And so it was desperation. I needed to learn this information for me.
Yeah, that spot on, because there's two things here that really I find remarkable about you is that number one, I love the fact that you give credit to everybody that you learn from. I think there's too much in our industry where people think that they've got to say that here's stuff that I come up with. So good on you that you're giving credit to the people that you actually learned the information from. I think that's a quality that more of us need to have. And then the second part is you hit the nail on the head that it's sometimes when you teach it the first time is when you're really grasping it. But when you teach it for the maybe fifth, sixth, or 10th time is when you truly understand it. And I think that's something that I think that educational speakers, whether you're in a school, on a stage, in a salon, that number one, give credit. And number two is learn that you're not going to say it perfectly right the first time, and I think that's the thing that even when it comes to learning a technique or whatever, just keep grinding on it, and it'll eventually hit you, and it'll eventually go, oh, one day you're going, oh, so that's what that means. So
Right.
Hats off to you. What was it like when, because, again, going in, I know you do this, so I know you do your research, and, you probably have, people that do all your research for you. I'm this Humboldt boy who has to do my own. And when I say Humboldt, that's town that I lived in, Humboldt, Saskatchewan. And, but American Salon said that you were one of the 5 people that helped to revolutionize education. And what was that? What was that like? And what did that mean to you when they said that?
Well, first of all, I do all my own research,
Bingo.
so
Good
no,
on
I
you.
don't. I don't have a team of people. You better believe, and I love that
Yeah,
process.
I
And
do
so
too.
if I'm doing a presentation and I need to address a topic that I'm perhaps not aware of, and I know you experience this as too, it can take. And I'm not exaggerating. It can take 100 hours
Yeah.
of research and preparing and learning to then do a 1 hour
Yes.
presentation.
Yeah.
If I'm doing a podcast, if I'm interviewing somebody, I'm putting at least 10 hours of
Yeah.
preparation to learn about that person and to come up with the right topics and the flow, and before I then do that 1 hour presentation. And so I like that part of my journey as well. The nod from American Salon magazine, that was important because, again, I'm passionate about education. If I wasn't passionate about education, then maybe it wouldn't mean so much that they acknowledge the fact that I do have that passion, and I do have that commitment to that next generation. Again, put me on stage in front of a bunch of hairdressers, I'll do okay. But put me on stage in front of a bunch of students, and that's where I feel that I'm at home. I think it was James Morrison who told the joke. How many hairdressers does it take in the salon to teach a haircut? 100. 1 to do the cut, and 99 to stand there and say, "Oh, I could do that."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But these
Exactly.
students, they have this attitude of beginner's luck,
Yeah.
and beginner's luck basically means that they don't know it won't work. I can walk into one of my schools with the stupidest idea, and my students are like, "Yeah, let's do it," and I just love that energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes isn't it? I can't remember who said this the very first time, so I can't give them credit. But it's when we lose that childlike attitude of learning, that's when our learning doesn't stop, but it certainly will manifest itself as anything. So I think that what I love what you just said is just how these kids come in and they don't know it will or won't work. It's just an idea, so let's give it a go.
Right.
And I think we all
And, and,
did
and
that at one time.
and age has nothing to do with that. I was recently at a show over the summer, and after my presentation, somebody said, "Winn, I want you to meet somebody." And so they dragged me to a hands-on classroom. So there was like 100 mannequins heads set up. They were going to do a cutting class. They take me to the front row, and there was this woman there in her 80s, in her 80s on the front row. She's been a hairdresser for more than 65 years. And yet there she is, still investing in education, still on the front row, still excited to be there, still passionate. And which again is so attractive. And by the way, I know some 18-year-olds who already know it all.
Yeah. Yeah. Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, and I find, when I hear that, I think good, because, sometimes they've got to think they know it all, have a failure, and then it'll hopefully bring them right back on track, as long as they're, that's not a mindset that has been, killing them for years because of it's been influenced by somebody else. So you started on education, and we were talking earlier just about Kitty Victor, and you and Kitty Victor had a great friendship, and you started the Master Series, and you and Kitty were doing all of that. So I want to do two things. Where did that come? Because you started that way before anybody else even thought of doing that. If you really thought of that, that was the podcast that was done 25 years ago, before we really had any of this. How did that start?
Yeah, it was in 1995 was our first release, our first issue. And I don't think that the word podcast, that term even existed back then.
Nope.
And by the way, we were recording these interviews, putting them on cassette tapes.
I still have
mailing them out to subscribers. I think it was $12.95 a month to receive an issue every single month. And we had subscribers in 10 different countries. I mean, it was immediately successful, because you're right. There weren't a lot of people doing that. Yeah. And the very first person that we interviewed was Vidal Sassoon, because we thought, if Vidal says yes to us, who's ever going to say no?
Exactly.
Like, do you want to be on this list with Vidal Sassoon? And so, of course, everybody said yes. And I have been putting out a new issue every single month since 1995.
Wow. Well, first of all,
it's one of the things that I enjoy the most. I think you just said it earlier, that you meet people at shows, and you meet people at events, and wow, that person's incredible. I would love to get to know them, but sometimes we don't have those opportunities. And the opportunity came about for me was, can I interview you for my podcast?
Yeah.
How else am I going to sit down and have a conversation with Vidal Sassoon, or with the president of Southwest Airlines, or with Fran Drescher, or with Gary Sinise, or with Chris Baran? Hey, I really want to sit down and let's have a conversation that I'm going to record, and I'm going to share that interview with the masses. That's such a great excuse, so to speak, to get to know somebody.
Yeah. And what I also like about it is sometimes, you develop a great relationship with them, just spot on, and they become friends. And I think that's kind of missing, was or is missing, however you see it in our industry. Because sometimes manufacturers can separate artists from people because they think that there's a competition in there. But as I say, we're just bloody hairdressers, or people who love our industry. And so
right.
We need to be friends and connect with one another.
Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
So I can't remember how long ago it was. So I was probably a good 5 to 10 years into doing my master's podcast, and Modern Salon magazine called me the Larry King of the beauty industry, because I had interviewed so many people, right? So Larry King reads that, and he calls me and he says, you need to come to my house so I can teach you how to be Larry King.
No
and so
way.
I went to Larry's house, and he sat down with me and spent a couple of hours. And that was just such great training, which I just utilized that a couple of hours ago when I was doing an interview with somebody. But I like that, because when I interviewed Trevor Sorby, Trevor Sorby then told me that it was because of that podcast interview that I did with him. That was the first time that somebody had dragged out of him answers and topics that nobody has ever done before.
Yeah.
And it was that interview that he then shared with his business partners that helped them then understand the role that he plays in their partnership.
Wow. Yeah. And to quote, Larry said, Winn Claybaugh is a remarkable guy and one of the best motivational speakers in the country. So, isn't it funny how one little incident can bring two people together who might not ever have known one another, and yet both of you won from it, right? And I just think he won because he got to meet you, number one. He won because he got some press, but I know that because we all know who he is, but you don't often see him as somebody who would just say, "Hey, come to my house. Let me teach
Yeah.
you something." I just think that's truly remarkable, and it reminds me of just all the stuff that we still got to just give stuff away that we've been given to. There was a young kid that friend of mine. He had his whole family was trying to get into the hair business, and all the daughters wouldn't, and the son did, and so Harvey approached me and said, "Hey, listen, would you teach my son, just so he knows hair cutting and blah blah blah?" And I said, "Sure, send him out. He can stay at my house." He stayed at my house for a while. And then at the end, he just said, "Okay, good. Here, Dad, give me a check. Just write out what do I owe you?" And I said, "You don't owe me anything. I don't want any money from you. The only thing I'm going to ask is that you pass on what I gave to you to some other young kid that needs it when they need it." And I think that if our whole industry would take on some of that, yes, I'm not saying that nobody should get paid. And for all the people that get paid, I get paid too. But I think that there's times in our life when you've got to see an opportunity to mentor and help and do what you do and then pass it on. I love that story that you told
Well,
about.
I have good news about that sentiment because I am on the receiving end of, or I'm witness to the receiving end of thousands and thousands of students that attend my schools every single year. And so I hear directly from them as we introduce them to mentors and heroes in the industry. And I'm never disappointed, meaning the stories that my students share with me is that, oh my gosh, I called Vivian McKinder and she was so wonderful to me. Oh my God, I spent an hour on the phone with Candy Shaw.
Yeah.
She was so generous to me. Oh my God, Sam Bricado was amazing. So anytime that these students do connect with people in our industry, what they hear back is, wow, this is an industry that's full of a lot of very generous, humble people who do want to share their talents and their information.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. I want to jump back just to what you said, because you talked about having Vidal Sassoon, and again, God rest his soul for everything that he did for our business. But do you think, here's one thing that worries me, and maybe you can help me see, am I on track with this or not? To me, I've always thought that we need to do whatever we can to help the young kids that are coming along to know where our history came from. Know the Sassoons and the Sorbys and Anthony Muscolos and blah blah blah. Do you see that as well? Do you see that we sort of are losing? I don't say losing our history, but I talk to so many kids where my inspiration, the people that were my hair heroes, I'll mention their name and they don't even know who they are. What's your take on that?
No, 1000%. And by the way, it's not just in our industry. I was just sharing with you earlier before we started recording that the podcast interview that I did this morning was with Taylor Hanson from Hanson Brothers, who had a big hit song in 1997 that he was 14 years old, went to #1 in 27 countries. And I asked him the question, tell me about your musical legacy. Tell me about who you listen to. And he could rattle it off, I listened to this band and my parents played this musician. So it's not just our industry. If you talk to any successful artist in the entertainment industry, in the music industry, in accounting, whatever, they could tell you who paved the way.
Yeah.
And if they can't, they're kind of limited. You don't want to hear a famous musician, saying, I don't know who those people are.
Yeah.
You want to know who paved the way for you. And I think it's a bad habit for brand new people in our industry to not do the research, to not have an interest in knowing who Trevor Sorby is, in knowing who Vidal Sassoon is, in knowing who Ruth Roach is. They have to know the history and the people who paved the way.
Yeah. And this is something that, and I've said this numerous times, so if you've listened to me say this before, it's just because it's real. I know that there's so many times when people want to be more creative. And the first thing I tell them is, don't try to be creative first, copy first. Like if you want to see something, and like that's how I learned different techniques, is I watched Trevor do something. No, let me rephrase that. I saw him do something. I didn't know how the hell he did it, but I had to research to figure out how the heck he did it. But I tried to copy it as close as I could. And then once I figured it out, I went, oh, now I know how I can stretch this. Now I know how I can push this a little bit further and evolve it and so on. Again, as long as you give all the credit. To me, that's where that is.
Right.
But I think copying is a part of creativity.
Oh, absolutely. But as you said, to give the credit.
Yeah.
So when I'm coaching a brand new person entering the industry, maybe you don't have your own work to post on your social media, but what you're doing is you're posting the work of your mentors.
Yeah.
One day I'm going to be as good as a Ruth Roach. One day I'm going to be good like a Presley Poe. And, this is the person, my mentor that I'm following right now. And then eventually, hey, I duplicated the work that Presley Poe posted, and how did it turn out? And you get better and better.
Yeah.
I remember interviewing Ruth Roach, and she's won every major award in the beauty industry over and over again. And I'm sure that some people assume that her first time doing a photo shoot won NAHA the first time out. And she said, no, the first photo shoot that she did was in the back of a Chinese restaurant in Santa Barbara, California. And I said, Ruth, can I see those photos? And she said, no, you can't. She doesn't share that part of it. The part of the journey she shares or that people know about is, winning over and over and over again. But as she tells her story, it's her doing exactly what you just said, Chris. She was copying Vidal Sassoon.
Yeah.
She was copying Trevor Sorby. She was copying Vivian McKinder. She said she even tried to copy Vivian McKinder's British accent, so that she could be super cool like Vivian McKinder. But that's another story.
Yeah, no, I really believe in that because it's the way that, to me, when even the copying part sets me in the creative mode simply because it's my therapy. Just trying so you can set your mind free of just trying to figure out how things are done. But even when you and I communicated at the very beginning, there's so many things that you have that are so profound about our industry. And when I hear you public speak about them, and when I read the articles that you do, I really want to hit on some of those so that the people that are listening and watching right now, if they haven't, that they hear it again. Or if they didn't hear it, they hear it again. If they didn't hear it, that they get to understand it. If they heard it again, that we can really hammer it home with them. And the word culture, I think, there's always these words in our industry that we have. Like everybody says, be professional. And yet I feel like if you just acted professional, you would be professional, but we tend to use it and not be it sometimes. And I think culture is that same kind of word. It gets thrown around, but what really is it? And I know that you talked to that point. And how would you define it? Like, what do you think that really is? What spin would you put on it? Or what's your take on that?
Well, again, a great question. And by the way, a topic that I'm super passionate about, because you're right. It is something that has been watered down and maybe people don't fully understand what it means to have a culture. And by the way, you can be professional. You can look the part and have a very toxic culture within your salon. See, culture happens when two people come together. So when two people come together, there is a culture. Yeah. And we have to decide what that culture looks like and what it feels like, or it will be decided for you. And oftentimes, because by default, the culture that can exist in a salon is a culture that is toxic. It's a culture that's based on backstabbing and not in supporting each other. And there's no teamwork. Well, we're all independent here. And so we're not employees and we're independent contractors. And therefore we can't have a culture that's a supportive team. Well, first of all, that's incorrect. And second of all, if that's what you subscribe to, or if that's what you create by default, does the customer pick up on that? Of course they do.
Yeah.
Does the customer give you a grace like, well, they're independent contractors, so I'll just put up with the fact that they don't love and support each other? Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Why should the customer put up with that? They want to walk into an environment, and if there's 2 people working there or 30 people working there, they want to walk in and feel like, wow, these people love each other. They take care of each other.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're trying to escape. They're trying to escape a boss that yells at them at work every day. They're trying to escape perhaps a marriage that's fallen apart. They don't want to have to walk into a salon and feel that same tension. And so that's culture. And I'm very, very specific on what it takes to create that type of a culture.
So what would you say is those things? If you had to define it to 1, 2, 3, 4 points, whatever, what would you say that defines it?
That's easy. And the foundation, one of my favorite movies was Field of Dreams. And the main message in that building or in that movie was build it and they will come. So if you're trying to attract a huge clientele, if you're trying to attract passionate, loyal, incredible team members, you have to build a culture that will attract those types of people. And so I can tell you the mistakes that I made in the past. The mistakes, like, for example, having a team member who worked for me for years. And the best way I know how to describe her is she was weaned on a pickle. The type, like sour, moody, mean. And every day for years, I was thinking, because gosh, I'm a motivational speaker. I can fix her. I can change her. Guess what? 3 years later, she was exactly the same. And so what did I do? I finally fired her.
Yeah.
Right. And the second that I fired her, first of all, the rest of the team were like, what have you been waiting for? We knew 3 years ago she should have been gone. And by the way, how many good people did I lose in the meantime? Well, I'm trying to, because my ego thought, oh, I can fix and I can change her. It's not our job to change people. So the second that I got rid of her, all of a sudden we were able to attract wonderful, positive people. So you ask the question, give some very specific. I can boil it down to 3 basic human needs. If you want to create a healthy culture where you attract people who are passionate, people who are loyal, there are 3 basic human needs. Number 1, people need to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
People need to feel safe. After being in the salon business for a couple of years, this woman who worked for me in those first 2 years, one day she privately pulled me aside and she said, Winn, I want you to know that for the last 20 years, I have been in this very abusive marriage. But because of working here for the last 2 years, I now have the courage to divorce this man.
Wow.
And I was like, huh?
Yeah.
She's like, Winn, I've been in this horrible marriage for 20 years. But for the last 2 years, when I come to work every day, I feel safe. I feel loved. I feel like I'm making a difference. And because of that, I now have the courage to divorce this man. And that was a huge wake-up call for me. Because up until that point, I thought that my only role, my only responsibility as a business owner was to create a place where people come to earn a paycheck. And what she taught me was the responsibility that I have. And by the way, every person in that building has the same responsibility. It's not just the boss's job. We all have this responsibility to create an environment, a culture where people feel safe. And that's the number 1 basic human need.
Yeah.
Second basic need, people need to feel that they belong. 60% of people say, no one has my back.
Yeah.
And by the way, half of them are married.
Mm.
Can you imagine that people don't feel like they belong in their own homes?
Wow.
We have students who tell us, I never belonged in high school. I didn't feel like I belonged in college. Coming to your Palm Mitchell school, this is the first time where I finally feel like I'm safe and where I belong here. This is where I belong. And that's a basic human need, because people don't just come work for your salon, they join your salon.
Yeah.
Your customers don't just spend money in your salon, they join your salon. People want something to belong to, something that's bigger than themselves. And look how oftentimes it's the salon is the barbershop, that's the gathering spot for the entire community.
Yeah.
Like that's where the community comes to connect with each other, to solve problems, to work through therapy. Right? That's the gathering spot for the entire community. People need a place to belong. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not the salon, it's not the barbershop, it's a coffee shop.
Yeah.
It's a bookstore. Let's reclaim that. Let's let the salon and the barbershop be that gathering spot. And the third basic human need, people need to have a purpose.
Yeah.
So I'm not just cutting hair here, but I'm making a difference. So yeah, as a team, yeah, we make a lot of money, but we also recycle. So we're making a difference. As a team, we all signed up to do the cancer walk together. As a team, we're all doing that together because statistically, 85% of consumers will change from one brand to another brand based on whether or not you're giving back to the community.
Yeah.
Meaning I have multiple places where I can buy a pizza. I have multiple places where I can get my hair done. I will decide where I'm going to spend my money, of course, with my head, based on price, based on location, but I also spend money with my gut, meaning, do I like you? Do I trust you? Are you just as concerned with making a difference in the community as you are with putting money into your own pocket?
This episode is sponsored by the Salon Associate Accelerator from trainersplaybook.com. Are you struggling with the time and cost of associate training? Do you feel like your salon is running you? We'll get your associates on the floor, all with 90% less time from you, so you can get back to building your business. Get them world-class design, finishing, color, and client care skills they'll use every day for the rest of their career, while you focus on realizing your vision. Go to trainersplaybook.com and get the Salon Associate Accelerator. And now, back to the show. Yeah, and I love that. Safe, belong, and purpose. And really, if you really look at it, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it? You know, it's all those things that are really, really involved in what people's human needs are to feel that they want to be a part of a group. And the part that I love that you said about being charitable, giving back. We have a coach for our business that always tells us that it's everything is what you do is based on your success is based on how much you tithe or how much you give back or is what you do to give to other people besides what you're doing just for your own wealth. And by wealth, I just mean, financial, spiritual, emotional. But that's such great advice. And so, we often talk about that. So what would you say to the young kid that's just going to look for a salon? How would they be? Everybody can talk culture, but what would you tell that kid to do? Whether they're, by kid, my standards, when you look at my gray hair and beard, et cetera, everybody's a kid, including you, to me. So, but what would you tell that kid when you're going to find that salon that has the right culture? What would you tell them to look for?
Again, a great question. First of all, take your time.
Yeah.
Take your time. Of course, that salon is interviewing you, but you want to interview them, so to speak. And by the way, I can't think of a legitimately successful, passionate salon owner that wouldn't want a new kid, as you call them, who's seeking a job, who wouldn't want a new kid to ask the question, hey, is it okay if I hang out here for a couple of days just so I can experience how people work around here? Can you show me that the place where I would be hanging out? Can I spend time? Can you watch me as I shampoo a customer, as I sweep hair, so that you can see me firsthand and I can experience your wonderful team here? Could I sit in on a staff training and be a part of that incredible experience? Because I know your salon is all about growth and learning and knowledge. Gosh, I would just like to be a fly on the wall. Is that an opportunity for me to be able to, as part of my interviewing process, to help me make a decision? And for you to make a decision about me, would it be okay for me to hang out during a staff educational event? Again, I can't think of a salon owner that wouldn't embrace all of that.
Yeah. And even think about that when if you're the owner going, well, what would that mean? But if you could see that kid, that young person, that new stylist, that new professional come in and do a shampoo or the way they interact, et cetera, what a great way for you to say, oh, like the attitude, you can measure up and you can say, wow, they did a really great job. I could get them on the, doing this immediately and helping to contribute financially. So, it's just a win-win all the way around. That's such great advice. I'm afraid that we're going to run out of time, and I've got so many things that I want to talk about in what I've seen you talk about, or what I've heard you talk about, or seen that you've written. And I would love if you could talk to backbone versus wishbone. I just found that an incredible comparison, and I get it. I think I got what you were meaning by it because it says it right there. But could you talk to that?
Absolutely. Wishbone, and people use this all the time. I wish I were taller.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I were skinnier. I wish I had better parents. I wish I had more talent. And we work on our wishbone, and we do that because we're comparing ourselves to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And what I challenge people to do is to work on their backbone. I've never assumed that I'm the smartest person in a room. And by the way, that used to hold me back. Like, I remember, I can tell you exactly where I was and when it happened and who the person was. It was Van Council, he's a good friend now. And back then I barely sort of knew him, but I remember we're at a training, we're at an event, and somebody asked a question, and Van raised his hand and he gave the answer. And I'm like, gosh, that guy is so smart. I'm never going to be as smart as Van Council. Therefore, I'm never going to be that successful. I completely held myself back. And now I'm proud to say that I'm not the smartest person in my company. You know, you and I were joking while we were trying to get this thing set up to start the recording here. You know, I had 3 people on my end. You had 3 people on your end trying to get you and I together today. And thank goodness they're smarter than we are when it comes to technology and getting the right camera and the right microphone and all of that stuff. You know, you don't want me hanging out in the financial aid department of my school. You don't want me hanging out in the accounting department or in the IT department. I'm thrilled that there are people that are much smarter than I am. And so my backbone means I can work really, 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 really hard. I can hustle, and nobody can ever take that away from me. That's my backbone, not my wishbone. Not I wish I were as smart as Van Council. I wish I was as pretty as Vivian McKinder. That's not my wishbone. It's my backbone. Mm-hmm. My backbone means maybe I'm not the smartest person in a room, but I can be the most positive person in a room. You know, how far is that going to take me? I walk in and I'm just super positive, and I go out of my way to meet everybody and to connect and to engage with everybody. My gosh, to me, that's so attractive when somebody does that. And we've all had those mentors and those heroes where we've been disappointed, where you finally get to meet them up close and personal, and they're not engaging, and they're not nice, and they're not generous with their time or with their wisdom. And the opposite of that, you know, Vidal Sassoon was the exact opposite of that. You know, I've been in rooms where there were 1,000 people tugging at Vidal Sassoon. Right? They all wanted his attention. They all wanted a picture with Vidal Sassoon. But if he was talking to you, what was he doing? He was just talking to you. Yeah. He had no idea this other stuff was going on around him. Yeah. And his conversations were genuine. His conversations were, tell me about you. Why'd you choose this industry? What are your goals? What are your passions? Yeah. How can I help you? He wasn't talking about his wealth or his fame or his accolades, his awards. He was genuinely interested in the person that was right in front of him. And to me, that's just so, so attractive.
Yeah. And you know, to me, you know, it's funny. I've talked about this a lot, being a bit of an introvert. And I remember being at his opening when they introduced his movie in New York City. And I was there, and I was watching everybody else go up to him. And I was too damn afraid, you know, and I don't even know, maybe it's not afraid, or I don't even know if that's the right word, but it was just weird. And I, you know, to this day, I wish that I would have went up there and done that. And that would have been the backbone part. Why didn't you just go out and do it instead of letting that little voice saying, well, why would he want a picture with you and all of that stuff? But that's such great information.
Well, I learned from people like that. Yeah. You know, I can do that. I don't have to be as talented as he is. I don't have to be as wealthy as he is, as famous as he is. But I can walk into a room of people, whether it's 5 people or 1,000 people, and I can be genuinely interested in everybody in that room.
I saw a picture of you. Obviously, it's just my conclusion from what I'm getting, because every picture you make your own conclusion of what it is. But I saw this picture of you on stage, kneeling down at the edge of the stage, talking to one person, and what stood out to me was what you just said. There had to have been another, 50, 100 people that were lined up around you, trying to get to you, shaking your hand. But I watched your eyes, and you were focused on her and her alone. And there's very few people that I think that have that quality. You have that. If you've ever talked to Ann Mincy, she has that quality. Vidal Sassoon had that quality. And I think that there's got to be something in there, is just that connect that you can do through just that eye contact and just focusing on that one person, whether that's for 2 minutes or for 2 hours. I think that's just such a special, special gift to have.
Thank you. I can tell you where that comes from. It comes from the fact that I haven't mastered any of this stuff. It comes from the fact that happiness does not come naturally to me. To some people, it does come naturally to them. To me, my whole life, even to this day, it never has. I have to work at my happiness every single day. And as much as I wish I could not have to read books on self-esteem, as much as I wish I could graduate from ever having to feel that way, that desperation, as I mentioned earlier, I can't. I can never coast. I have to work on it all the time. But I've learned to be grateful for that feeling, because I know the flip side to that is what genuinely makes me care about other people and hear other people's stories and ask them about their stories and be there for people. It really is genuine, because I want to be the person that maybe I've needed along the way.
Yeah. I know I've got I think we all have our hang-ups that we do and things that happen to us along the way. And whether that's ego from wanting to be recognized or whatever. But when you, was there something along the way? Like, what were the things that I know I can tell you some of the things that happened is, for me, was just the things that happened to me that made me insecure in what I was doing. But I still carry some of that around. And I like you, I have to do my gratitudes to get rid of it, et cetera. But for people that are listening out there and they say, look, I'm going through that too. What's the thing, the process, the procedure that you go through, or what the advice you could give them so they could get out of that funk or push through that? What would you tell that person?
Another great question. Discipline.
Oh, in what way?
And again, that's a word that people just think is a bad word. That discipline ties you down. Discipline gives me the freedom where I'll do things that maybe I don't enjoy doing, so that I can have the life that I absolutely love. For example, I love having energy. I'm 65 years old and I have a 12-year-old daughter. I need a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And so I go to do I love the gym? No. Do I love the diet? No. Do I love the discipline to get at least 8 hours of sleep every single night? Not always, but I'm willing to have the discipline to do things that I don't necessarily enjoy doing, so that I could have the life that I love. And so I'm very, very detailed in what my day needs to look like.
Wow.
So it's not like I go to the gym whenever I'm in the mood. I'll never go.
Yeah.
I go to the gym the same time every single day. So I get up at 4:00 every single morning. And I know that right now people listening to this are like, what, 4:00? I'm not going to do that. Okay, just find the discipline, the schedule that works for you. And I have the discipline. So I'm up at 4:00. I know exactly what happens between 4:00 and 6:00. Which is when my daughter then gets up. I know what happens between 6:00 and 7:30, which is the time that she then leaves for school. I can tell you exactly what happens during the 20-minute drive when I leave at 7:30 in the morning and I drive to the gym. There's a 20-minute drive, and I can tell you exactly what's happening during those 20 minutes, right? And I could schedule out my entire day that way. Because to not have that discipline means that, well, now there's risk that I didn't go to the gym, that I didn't take the time to call my mother, Therefore, I don't have the energy. I don't have the mindset to be a good parent, to be a good dad, to be a good husband, to be a good leader.
Yeah.
So I'm real disciplined with all of that stuff. What do they say at our age, Chris? You can't discipline. I'm sorry. What do they say at our age? You can't Google wisdom.
Right.
You can Google lots of things, but guess what? You and I have wisdom,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
can't Google that.
Yeah. I hear, and I know that my good friend of mine, Chris Moody, always he talks about that the difference between knowledge and wisdom, and he said knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. So it's just that the experiences that go along with it's the wisdom that goes along with the knowledge that makes it viable and everything you can do.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
so
great.
I I want to hit on this, and is that right now, because I know that you talk also on work-life balance. And right now, I know that's another thing that I get. Everybody's saying, I want work-life balance. And yet, like earlier, you said you hustle, and you're probably one of the most disciplined people that I know, and works hard to get what you get for the successes, especially with the amount of success that you've gotten. But what's your take on work-life balance when it comes to hustle and do your work and get out there? And right now, I even heard somebody said to me the other day, or I heard it on the news, that actually in America, the amount of hours that people are working is actually surpassed Japan for the number of hours that you're putting into your work. And
Well,
what do you say to people when it talks about work-life balance, et cetera?
I think you're at different stages of life, and maybe the whole balance thing is a myth. I don't know that I've ever met anybody who said that they are perfectly balanced with work, with family, with health and wellness, with in every area, with spirituality. I don't know that anybody has ever mastered that to be perfectly balanced in all of those areas. And your different stages of life. Like every time I interview a successful woman, I'm always asking her that question, can you have it all? And oftentimes the answer is yes, you can, but maybe not at the same time.
Oh,
So can you have a career? Can you raise children? Well, yeah. And so I heard that. But I focused, and what they're telling me is I focused until I was in my 30s only on my career, was just about my career. But then when I decided to finally have a family, well, then I cut back there so that I could have that as well. And so maybe you could have all those things, but not at the same time. For me, it's not so much about balance as it is maximizing.
Yeah.
It's about maximizing my time. And so I'm not going to be balanced, but how can I have an hour to take care of this today? How can I maximize that hour to get the biggest return? So if I am going to volunteer my time today, if I am going to try to make a difference so that I'm a good human being, so I feel good about myself spiritually, and I have an hour to do that, how can I maximize that hour to get the best result, to get the better return on my investment?
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I love where your comparison, because there's so many people that they think it's a numbers comparison, this hour to this hour, when it just has to be quality. I know that, I still am a little. If you'll sense the guilt that I still have when I was on the road all the time, and my wife was doing all the, taking kids to school and going to the things that I missed out on, and yet I talked to my kids about it, and whether they lie to me to make me feel better or not, but they said, "No, Dad, we still, we still got that from you." But I that's the part I'm getting from here is don't take it as a numbers comparison of hour per hour. It's just the quality and how present you are.
Well, something as simple. So my daughter gets up at 6:00.
Yeah.
I know that has to be no phone zone.
Yeah.
That has to be a time where now from 4 to 6, I can be on my phone as much as I want, because I'm using my phone to put on music, because I'm a DJ throughout the day. I'm putting on different music to create moods for myself throughout the day. I control my environment to maximize the best energy of my day. And I'm on my phone to get through emails and, take care of, because I'm on the West Coast. So I've got businesses on the East Coast. It's 3 hours later and they're waiting for a response from me. And so I can take care of that before 6 a.m. But to maximize my time as a dad, I got to shut that down.
Yeah.
That phone needs to disappear and be hidden when my daughter's present.
It's interesting when you say that, Winn, because, and it's funny how, our mind creates a different ending just like that. Because you said the phone has to be off. And I went, oh, your daughter's phone has to be off. But no, you're saying not your daughter's phone has to be off. Your phone has to be off so that you are
My
present
phone.
and not picking up a phone every 2 minutes, just looking at your emails, etc. Yeah. Yeah. That's great stuff. When we're kind of at that I call it the rapid fire segment now, kind of how we all wrap this up. So just I'll throw out some questions. The first thing that comes to your brain. What turns you on in the creative process?
Oh, relationships.
And what stifles
Relationships. Oh my gosh, I just love being able to tap into people's their backgrounds and their passions and what gets them out of bed in the morning, and to be able to combine all of that, because I consider myself a connector.
Yep.
And so when I can find 10 people and you're passionate about this, and for you it's something different, and I'm the connector that brings all of that together, I love that creative process.
I love that. What stifles a creative process for you?
Lack of sleep, not going to the gym. In this industry, hairdressers are notorious for putting other people first.
Yeah.
So they don't eat properly because this client came in late, and this one, wants more of your time and your attention. And, I'm the same way. At the end of the day, my gosh, to learn how to be selfish in a really good way.
Yeah.
To really, really take care of ourselves. And when I don't do that, man, I'm just so stifled.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love the energy level that I have. I love it that 18-year-olds can't keep up with me. And again, as you and I know, we have to work harder to have that kind of energy. My gosh, I can be at the gym 5 days a week, and then I throw out my back trying to put my socks on. It gets harder and harder to maintain this. And, so I'm super, super disciplined on maintaining that. And so if I'm ever stifled, I can look back over the last 5 days, and I skipped the gym. I skipped this, I missed out on that. And that's what stifles me.
Yeah, I get it. And in life, in general, what do you love the most about life?
Oh, my daughter.
Oh, and that's yeah. I think it's not. I always talk. I was talking to Sam Villa. This was before he had his son, and we were often talking. I said, Sam, when you have your child, your life will change. Your attitude will change. Everything in life will change once you have that child. So,
by the way, a million people could tell you that until it happens to you. You don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And for me, it's later in life. Again, I'm 65 and she's 12. I had no idea. That becoming a parent was going to do this to me.
Yeah. What do you love most about our industry?
Oh gosh, relationships.
Yeah.
This is just an industry that's based on relationships. When you get together, of course, there's training going on. Of course, there's statistics going on. Of course, there is the sharing of best practices. But above all of that, the foundation for all of that is the networking and the relationships. And I thrive on that. I just thrive on meeting different people. And again, I call myself a connector. So I'm proud of the fact, as much as I'm under the Paul Mitchell banner, so to speak, under that umbrella, I'm proud of the fact that my long-term best friends in the beauty industry, a lot of them have never had anything to do with the Paul Mitchell company.
Yeah.
And by the way, not only am I proud of that, John Paul DeJoria is proud of that. He loves the fact that I speak at conferences for manufacturers that are his competitors, so to speak. He loves that I cultivate those relationships.
Yeah. And you do that well. Very well, my friend.
Thank you.
The person that you admire the most?
Oh, my mom.
Oh.
Yeah.
She was a big mentor in your life, or?
She was. She died in December, so just 6 months ago, at 96 years old.
Oh.
And my mom, by the way, worked with me for over 30 years. So when I was brand new in business, and by the way, my father and my mother mortgaged their home to help me open up my school. I mean, again, no college education, no experience, and yet they took that risk and mortgaged. They put their financial security and stability on the line to help me get into business. And then soon after, I lured my mother away from her job and convinced her to come and work with me. And she worked with me for 30 years. In fact, it was funny because she was, I think, maybe in her late 80s when one day she left me a message, when I need you to call me. But she's never left a message like that. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What's going on here? I call her back, Mom, what's up? What's up? What's going on? She's like, you know what? And she's like stammering as she's trying to tell this to me. She's like, I think it's time for me to retire. I'm like, Mom, you can retire. You're almost 90. You can retire. So the fact that because I got to see a side of my mom that my siblings didn't get to see.
Yeah.
My siblings got to know an amazing mom, and she was an amazing mom. I got to know her as this incredible mentor, as this incredible businesswoman. So I got to see that side of her as well. And so she just taught me so much. And we could spend hours and hours talking about the gifts and the lessons that I learned from that amazing woman.
Yeah. Well, God bless her for that. I know that everybody always talks about, and I don't take you as a possession person, but if somebody had to say to you, what was your most prized possession? What would you say that is?
A concert grand piano.
Ooh.
Yeah. And you know how you set like benchmarks for yourself? I wish I could be so successful that I could buy that car or that I could own my own business. I had a mattress on the floor, but my first goal was one day I want to be successful so that I can own a Yamaha concert grand piano.
Wow.
And that was the first benchmark and that I reached. And by the way, I still own that piano 35 years later.
That's awesome. And you play it?
Yeah. I play it. It used to be a bit of a career. So I did have a bit of a career in the music industry, and now it's just, strictly as a hobby. So now the only person that hears me play the piano is my daughter.
And I'm wondering if this next question something that people don't know about you, was that a kind of a lead into that, or?
I was a rock star. So there you go. So in April of 1981, I had a hit song in South America. And believe it or not, it was that money that I used to open up my first salon. So I had this money and didn't know what to do with the money. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and own my own business. And I had friends that were hairdressers, and they talked me into opening up a little salon. It was a 3-chair salon, like the size of my closet. It was in the basement of an office building in downtown Provo, Utah.
Wow.
So that's where I started off. My rent was $205 a month.
What was the name of the song?
Yeah, we're not going to go there. Okay. So nice try.
You know that had been popping up all over the place on you there.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to bury that one.
Month off. Where would you go? What would you do?
You know what? Stay home. I just, as much as I travel, I don't travel anywhere near as much as I did before I had my daughter. When you, it's always been a goal of mine or a focus of mine to where my home had to be a sanctuary. Yeah. So again, I'm very, very clear. As much as people, they will obsess about the lighting in the salon and the music in the salon and the cleanliness of the salon, but they don't recreate that at home for themselves. And I am that way. My home is like, it's the right lighting. I said it earlier that I'm a DJ all day long. At 4 a.m., I put on music. I don't put on the news. I put on music. And what I listen to at 4 o'clock is different than what I listen to at 6 o'clock, which is different than what I listen to at 7:30. So I have the right speakers and the sound system, and I light candles in the morning. I'm not exaggerating. I bet I light 20 candles in the morning. I'm all about ambiance. And so my home has always been a bit of a sanctuary for me. So to be able to have a month off and just be home in my own home, that's a fabulous experience for me.
Yeah. Something that terrifies you.
I'm not sure I really have an answer for that.
Yeah. Courageous all the way through.
I don't know. if it's courage, I'm certainly driven. I'll say that there's a lot of things that again keep me up at night.
Yeah.
The fight against sex trafficking
Yeah.
scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
The fact that thousands of animals are euthanized every single year.
Yeah.
The fact that there are 10 million children that walk into a Children's Miracle Network hospital every single year, and those poor parents are faced with the life and death of their child and they don't have the means to pay.
Yeah.
That keeps me awake at night. So,
well, that's probably one of the better ones we've got out of that. Mine, just to show you, mine was spiders.
I'm okay with spiders.
Yeah. Your favorite curse word?
Oh, it's the F-bomb. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And by the way, you've never heard me use that word on a stage. Never.
No.
But when it's just me, that's my favorite word.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's just no better way to express yourself.
Yeah. Yep. And sometimes it can be rhetorical too, It's just your favorite comfort food.
That would be key lime pie.
Oh,
I know, and I shouldn't share this because get this. And so, I'm the boss in the company. What do you buy the boss for Christmas?
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess I shared this on a podcast, last fall. And so I had I'm not exaggerating, 20 key lime pies showed up at my house for the holidays.
Oh.
So yeah.
And you got to eat them all. You got them all. You got to eat them all.
I know. They went in the freezer, and trust me, I got through all of them.
Yeah, and
they were the best key lime pies. They were shipped in from the key lime capital of Florida, whatever. Yeah. And so they were amazing key lime pies.
Yeah, that's where Rita and I, my wife and I got indoctrinated into them, is going to Florida. And then I'd never had a key lime pie before. And then we even found out where to buy the juice to make the stuff with. So it was awesome. If something in the industry you haven't done, but you want to, we're doing our affirmation here.
This industry has been just so generous to me. I've been the host of NAHA. I've spoken at every single major industry event back in the day. Remember TSA, the Salon Association, and spoken at all of the big events around the industry. I don't think I have an answer for that question.
No, that's okay.
I feel super blessed that I've been able to check so many things off that list.
It has been an amazing industry for a lot of us. If you had one wish for our industry, what would that be?
More unity. More unity without stop considering that the salon down the street is your enemy.
Yeah.
I'd rather have 10 good salons as my competitors than 10 bad salons.
Yeah.
I'd rather have 10 good schools as my competitors. And so when we have more unity and we come together with best practices and we make commitments with each other, I keep on bringing up Candy Shaw. She has been a great friend and a great mentor. And she talks about how there's a group of salons in the Atlanta area that unite, and they have agreements with each other not to poach and steal each other's team members, and they share best practices and they unite and come together to pay for education for their teams. I just think that that's such a wonderful, wonderful example of what the possibilities are in this industry. And so, and it could be just as simple as just, call the salon down the street and say, hey, why don't we get together and pool our resources to bring in this great education for both of our teams, or let's get together for coffee and I'll share with you my 3 best practices, and if you want, you can share your best 3 practices with me, and then the next time we'll grow that to 3 different salon owners that are having coffee, and then to 10, and then we bring our teams together. So I just think that more unity is what's going to support this industry.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. So, Winn, besides, I just want to say thank you so much for you're always so generous with your time. But if people want to get a hold of you and they want you to come and speak or whatever, how would they get a hold of you? What would they do to have you come in and speak with them?
I think the best way to contact me is through my website or social media, and all of it's Winn Claybaugh. So
Yeah.
on Instagram or Facebook or my Twitter, it's all Winn Claybaugh.
Yeah.
My website is winnclaybaugh.com. I invite people on my website. All of these podcasts that I've been doing again since 1995, it's all free and available for people to listen to. So they can go and listen to that very first interview with Vidal Sassoon that many years ago. And there's a brand new issue every single month.
Yeah.
So that's the best way to connect. I don't get out to speak. I will go out like once every 6 weeks. I'll go out for a week. And then I just want to get home and be a dad.
Yeah.
I'm the room parent in my daughter's class every single year. So I don't want to miss a thing.
I'm with you, bud. Listen, I just want to say thank you so much, Winn. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. You know what? And it's just like everybody else that listens to you, I learned too. So I just want to say thank you for your time, your generosity, and your just availability. I know everything going on. You were here for us, and I just truly appreciate you.
Chris, there's no way I'm going to say no to you. And by the way, you're very, very good at what you do. I've really enjoyed listening to the other interviews that you have done, and you're very good at what you do. You come from this beautiful place of humility and curiosity, which is just so attractive.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Thank you so much. And to that point, I just want to say to people, if you like, and I know you're going to love this podcast that we had with Winn, but if you like what you hear and so on, if you just show us some love and just give us a 5-star rating and a review, and that way we can do more of these shows and get more out to you there. But so I just want to say to Winn, thank you so much again. I'm Chris Baran, and this is Headcases.